Sup Anon. Before I go any further, Bat King Leper, link is down below in the description box. Back it on Kickstarter. Get yourself a signed copy or just a copy or an ebook. Those are also available. What I want to talk about today is being anonymous. I'm not anonymous. I'm David Stewart. I wrote the book. I made this channel. You see my face. You hear my voice. I'm not anonymous. But I want to talk about anonymity on the internet, how important it is, and some things that I would do differently if I could go back in time, and why I forgive myself a little bit for doing the things that I've done and operating the way that I have operated. So internet anonymity, I think, is really important, but I think people also make some mistakes in regards to how seriously they take anonymous accounts. So the reason internet anonymity is important is because it allows you to speak more freely. And that's because there are, in the United States and even more in other countries that have a legal consequence to things that you could say. There's a lot of consequences to what you say online. You could lose your job. There are a whole range of opinions that you can't actively express and be able to hold a job in the United States, at least the standard corporate job or a job with the government, be a teacher, things like that. You won't be able to have those opinions and have those jobs. Questioning certain ideas can get you into very big hot water with your social group or with your neighbors maybe, or more importantly, your work. So being able to be anonymous, I think, is really important for being able to discuss any topic that you want to discuss. And I come from the olden days of the internet where everybody was anonymous. Like, nobody had their real name on the internet in the 2000s. Why did I not do that? Well, I can tell you that if I could go back in time to when I started this channel, or when I really started, publishing books or doing all the stuff that I did, I would do it anonymously. I would not show my face. Maybe I'd have, videos that are just my voice and some other visual thing going on. I wouldn't show my face, and I wouldn't use my real name. And that's because, well, it might be difficult for me to get certain jobs now because all of my opinions are on the internet. Some of them have been viewed thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and that can have a big consequence for me. So it'd be good to not have that consequence. You always have the option, if you're anonymous, to decloak. You always have the option to de-anonymize, to reveal your true identity. But if you're using your true identity, as I am, you don't have the option to anonymize yourself without losing everything. So if I wanted to become anonymous, what would I lose? Well, the new anonymous pseudonym that I would take up would have 0 books published. I'd have all the skill from publishing all the books, but no backlog, right? 0 subscribers, 0 followers on Twitter, right? Everything would be back at ground zero. It's like I'm starting over from scratch. So you lose everything that you've built, other than the lessons you learned on the way. Those, I guess, you can keep for the future. But this lesson is one that I can't really undo. Now, I forgive myself a little bit for not being anonymous because I was looking at it as like, I'm a writer, I'm a musician. I wasn't anonymous as a classical guitarist. I was me. I had business cards with my name and my phone number on it so that people could call me, book me, and hire me for gigs. I'd never been anonymous, right? I'd always been a public person as a musician. So I just figured I'd be a public person as a writer. Like, my brand is me. I am my brand. But that was back in like 2012, 2013. I think I started the channel just uploading guitar videos in 2013, and didn't take it too seriously. It's just like, here's a piece I played, here's a lesson, and kind of went from there. Back then, it wasn't so big a deal. Like, it wasn't so big a deal. People weren't canceling you over any little thing, especially humor. Humor is still not back, right? An election happened. Humor is still not back. You still can't tell. There's a lot of jokes you can't tell and expect to be able to keep a job, or maybe even ever have a job again, right? There are major significant consequences to telling the wrong kinds of jokes. So humor's not back. But back when I started, you could be anonymous. People could tell jokes on the internet still, for the most part, and there weren't these big, giant life consequences to saying the wrong thing or stepping outside of the little leftist box that everybody got put into on the internet. So that I forgive myself for not knowing the future or assuming, the present would continue in some form or another into the future. So that's the big thing I would change. I would become anonymous. Now, there are some things about being anonymous, is that if you're anonymous on the internet, that means a connection to a real life person can't happen. So like, I don't know, it's probably wouldn't happen because of the way things are. But if I wanted to have public speaking engagements, I have to be me to publicly speak. Like I have to go out and here's my face and people are going to see it. Even like someone like Lockpicking Lawyer, if he goes and does a public performance, people I assume are going to see his face unless he does it in a mask, which would be pretty interesting. But it's really hard to be anonymous and be a public speaker, really hard to be anonymous and be a gigging musician, those sorts of things. So there's there's a lot of consequences to that. If you want to be a rock star, you pretty much can't be anonymous. Anonymity works well for writers. It works really well for writers, and it works okay for people who can just, have their voice working and that sort of thing. So, there's some consequences to being anonymous, but the big advantage is that you're a lot more free to speak. So if you look at the old days of the internet, like 4chan or something like that, everybody was anonymous on the board. Everybody by default was anonymous unless you wanted to use some sort of tag to identify yourself, which most people really didn't. Everyone was anon. There's good and bad that goes with that. So the good is that you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever truth you want or whatever lie you want. And at the top of like the random board is only a fool will take anything posted here as fact. So if you spent time on those anonymous image boards, you developed an instinct real quick for people bullshitting. And I think that instinct is missing from people on Twitter. I think people on Twitter are not critical enough of anon accounts and are really easily convinced by hyperbolous, attention-grabbing language that is either humorous or incendiary, the kind of stuff that we would read on 4chan, and most people would actually kind of shrug it off because they would know that doesn't match reality, or they would take it at least with a grain of salt because they're like, this is just some random person posting on the internet. Yes, they have the freedom to post truth, but they also have the freedom to post lies, and they could just be trolling or doing this for entertainment or fantasy role-playing, whatever they say. Someone would come on 4chan and post about, all of their experience with women. It's like, yeah, but I think you might just be expressing fantasies. And I've had many people express fantasies in my YouTube comments where they talk about their conquests. And because of my experience with that, I could just kind of smell that and be like, I know you're bullshitting. I know you're saying something because you wish for it to be true and you wish people to think it's true, even if they don't know you or believe you, right? It's just it's a role play, right? And people do it all the time, and people do it on Twitter. And I think people's, their sniffer for bullshit is just not as finely tuned because they weren't raised in the chaos of 4chan in the 2000s. They just aren't used to that level of anonymous discourse happening. I mean, it would be so anonymous on 4chan, you weren't sure who was replying to who because everyone was anon. You would be able to figure out who was in the thread based on how they wrote. Right? That was how you did it. And you could figure out who was who. No one would identify, but you'd know who was having a conversation with who because they wrote differently and they wrote in different ways and they took different positions on any kind of debate or anything on the whole forum. So, there's a lot of anonymous accounts that are like right-wing accounts, and they're kind of in my sphere on Twitter, and I like a lot of them, and I'm friends with some of them too, and they're cool. A lot of them are cool. A lot of them use the anonymity to do what I said, to sort of speak truth without having to worry about losing their 9-to-5 job, or worrying about a journalist calling up their boss and getting them fired. That's why they're anonymous. So they're able to say things that are a little bit outside the Overton window maybe, and maybe within the Overton window on Twitter, but outside the Overton window at their place of work. And that can be important. And they're able to, engage in discussions they otherwise wouldn't, just like how people would do that on an anonymous image board. However, there's lots of people who kind of pretend to be one thing. And if you have a good sniffer, you really figure out that they're bullshitting. So there's a lot of accounts that they pretend to be like alpha males or something like that. I've even seen some of them write whole books that people I know have liked, and I'm like, I can't believe you think that this book is not complete fantastical horseshit, because this guy's obviously lying about all of his experiences with women. It's super obvious. And then when they post, occasionally they because they're role playing as like an alpha male guru, occasionally they let the cat out of the bag and they reveal that they're gay, right? They're very gay. They'll say something about how like their female beauty isn't real beauty and male beauty is like real beauty. And it's like, okay, that's definitely something a gay man thinks. And that's nowhere near what a misogynistic heterosexual man would think about women. And, most of us can know that because we're misogynistic heterosexual men, right? But your bullshit sniffer picks up on this. And so the thing is those can be entertaining accounts. They can be informative, but when they're giving advice, this is the big problem. When they're giving advice or telling you how to think about something or how to act about something, anonymous accounts should not be taken seriously. And that's because the proof in the pudding is in the eating, right? If an anonymous account is giving you fitness advice, you shouldn't listen to them. You'll notice the people that you should listen to with fitness advice are people who are fit. There was an old YouTuber, and he's still around, Scooby1961. I absolutely love this guy, even though he would probably like hate me if he knew too much about me. But he's got a ton of great fitness advice, and he used to shoot all his videos like 10, 15 years ago without a shirt on. So he was shirtless in all of his videos, and people asked him, why don't you ever wear a shirt? And he's like, it's to show I have my body on display in every video to show you I practice what I preach. That when I say something, my body is the result. Maybe I don't have perfect abs, but you know that what I'm doing has some result that you can see, right? I'm not just saying something. I'm not saying something that out of a book. I'm telling you what I do. And that's important. And when I see other, fitness guys who are selling a fitness course, they shoot a video and they're in good shape, right? Let you know that, hey, they're not just selling you some crap that is appealing to you. And I think that's like the fad diet thing too. People get really hooked on fad diets because it seems easier than doing the really hard work. But a lot of times you find that the people selling the fad diet don't have the body, it's like the Atkins diet. It's like this guy wasn't like some kind of shredded fitness model, right? They don't have the body that necessarily goes with it. But the people who have the body, they usually aren't selling the bullshit. If they're selling a cookbook, you're like, oh, this cookbook is probably good nutrition. It's what they actually eat. They're not selling you, oh, here's how to get shredded eating French fries. And I'm like, no, you can't eat French fries. But you can have French fries once a month, maybe, right? It's a cheap meal. But it's things like that. Fitness is a great example. The thing about like anonymous pickup artists and stuff like that is they're probably role playing. And if they're selling a course, they are making their money by selling a fantasy to you that you're going to read their pickup artist course and magically be good with women, magically get dates or something like that, when it's really not that simple. Chances are they are just looking for rubes, right? And a lot of people can't smell this until it's too late. A lot of young men get sucked in by those promises. They get sucked in by just the belief that they can improve their station, improve themselves, improve their place in the hierarchy, get more attraction from women, and doesn't always work that way, right? Versus, I don't know, if like more plates, more dates, you can see the evidence of what he's done, right? He has like a body and hair and things. So he's talking about like stopping your hair loss or something like that, or like how to build muscle or how to get shredded. He's actually done that stuff. When he talks about what drugs, he's like, I tried this drug out. Chances are he actually did that, right? So the proof in the pudding is in the eating. But when it's an anonymous account, why should you listen to their advice on women, right? They're probably just looking to sell, and especially if they're selling you anything, you got to be very, very cautious. It's just something I noticed because people on Twitter are used to dealing with real people with real names, and then an anonymous account comes in and they don't really question. They just have this same mode of like, it's a person and I'm dealing with a person, without thinking like this person could be fantasy role playing. It's they're giving out advice on women, but they're gay, right? If they're gay and they're giving you advice on women, it's probably not going to be the best advice, right? Or if they're a woman giving you advice on women. There was one that we caught that I think it was, I don't remember what it was. It was some pagan LARP account that was like, for the gods, didn't understand paganism and never actually looked into ancient paganism. That's always the thing that gets me, is like, they're so far off. They like read a couple translations of the Odyssey and thought that that's what paganism was. Totally not, right? But they had left one of their jewelry pieces in there. It's like, oh, this person is a Latina, right? It's a woman. Her bracelet is a little girl's charm bracelet, right? So it's some chubby Latina is just role playing as a European pagan to get views and attention, and especially on Twitter to monetize it. And it's going to be the same thing on YouTube. How many times has some anonymous YouTuber made a claim that they have some insider at some company saying that somebody is going to get fired? You guys know who I'm talking about, and you know what the situation is, because I know my viewers have been around the block a few times with this, right? They're in their face. They have nothing at stake, right? Except they could say whatever they want to get views, to get people's attention, to get people interested. And there's nothing behind it. There's no brand really to lose. There's no brand to damage because it's all anonymous. Whereas I have a lot at stake, right? I have my brand, I have me, I have books, I have lots of things. Chances are I've upset people before, and they've gone and like spammed my book reviews with 1-star reviews and things like that. And stuff happens, right? There's like real consequences to my brand management or how poorly I manage it, necessarily, depending on what I'm doing. So anyway, that's what I really wanted to just talk about today, is that it's really important for internet anonymity. It would be great if we all decloaked and they were unable to isolate any of us. We all stood strong. But that's not realistic. A lot of people are in such a vulnerable position, they just are not going to take that step to daringly be themselves and accept the consequences of their words and their beliefs and their positions and their morals. And I'm not going to judge them for that, right? People have a lot at stake. You're trying to provide for your family. It's really important that we have anonymous accounts on Twitter or YouTube or wherever else, so that we can actually share these ideas without those significant consequences, without the fear of being canceled. But at the same time, keep your bullshit detector on, because lots of people are going to sell you bullshit when they don't have any personal stake or any downside to it. They don't have any skin in the game, right? The beauty of an anonymity is that when you don't have skin in the game, you can really just say whatever you want. Downside is, if you don't have skin in the game, you better have your good bullshit detector, is what I'm saying. So that's it. Leave me your thoughts down below. Don't forget, here's the book. Link is down below for the Kickstarter campaign. You can get a signed hardback or just an ebook. So check it out, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day. Later, Anons.